Oh, hello. Happy Friday.
Hello.
It's so great to be back after a nice long week.
Welcome back to the Relocation Rundown with Aaron and Jeff. Um, we have.
Oh,
There she
how
is.
are you guys?
Hello. Good.
Me,
How
How
I
are
are you?
am.
you?
I mean, it's so nice outside right now.
Oh my God, it's
I know. I was
so
just sitting
hot.
out there for 1 second. I think I got a sunburn.
Yeah, we turned off the AC so we could hear you guys better and you guys could hear us, but
Yeah.
the second we finish this live, that air conditioner is
But
going right
my
back
boyfriend
on.
was just telling me it's supposed to go back like into the 50s next week. So it's not like we're not in the clear yet.
Oh,
Oh, great. So I'm going to be sick next
Exactly.
week.
Exactly.
Great. Fantastic.
thanks
Thanks
so
for
much for taking
inviting
the time to
me.
do this with us. We're really excited. So, this is the Relocation Rundown with Aaron and Jeff.
And I'm Aaron. And
I'm
this is
Jeff. And we are talking to people in different markets, agents who we know and trust, who can talk to the challenges and uniqueness of making a relocation from wherever they may be to your market. So today, why don't you kind of give a little intro on yourself, who you are, where you work,
So
and
I am Jessica
yeah.
Sigmund. I am the team leader of the Sigmund team, and I'm from Greenwich, Connecticut, but I live currently in Portchester, which basically is on the border. Grew up in Greenwich, lived here from elementary, middle, and high school. So it's kind of it's the first town right outside of New York. So first town into Fairfield County. We have a team of agents all over, all the way up to Reading, which is kind of like fairly far into Fairfield County, probably 45 to 50 minutes. And yeah, I love it here. I love it now because we have beautiful beaches on the Long Island Sound. So I'm excited. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, that Gold Coast of Connecticut, I keep hearing beautiful things about it.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were from
No,
Connecticut. I thought
no.
you
So
were from
I'm actually from
Westchester.
Greenwich. I moved out of Greenwich when I went to college, where I moved to Florida for college. So I went to Lynn University, but I actually grew up in Greenwich. Yeah.
Cool. Jeff is actually
Oh,
Yeah, I grew up in
yeah.
South
Where'd you grow
Florida, not
up?
too far from Lynn, so that's funny.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
grew
I
up
know
from a
it's.
small
Of course, I
town
know where
called
Parkland
Parkway.
is, because I lived in Boca, and like that's kind of like where everybody moved after Boca.
Yeah, yeah. I grew up down there. I moved there when I was a year old and moved right
There's a
back to
lot
New
of
York
back
when I
and
was
forth
18.
between Connecticut and New York and Florida.
Oh yeah. So I think you're probably one of the first people who we've had on with us who has a big team behind them. Can you talk a little about that dynamic and what it's like working with
Yes.
you and your
There's
team?
8 of us on the team, which is really fun. We have 2 agents in Rockland County, which is awesome because Compass isn't really in Rockland so much yet. So we have 2 agents that are in Rockland County. We have Most of our agents are dual licensed in Connecticut and in Westchester. So we have an agent that lives in Mamaroneck, Reading, Riverside, which is part of Greenwich, Danbury-ish area. So we're kind of pretty spread out all around here. And what we normally do is I try to, if I get a referral in or something, or a lead or somebody looking to purchase, I try to fit them with whoever knows the area the best, of course. So if it's somebody looking in Reading or in that area, Wilton, Weston, our Nando on our team really specializes up there in that area, or Jaliska, who's also on our team, specializes up in northern Westchester on the border of Connecticut, because they really kind of border. So even though you live in northern Westchester, a lot of the time she actually shops in Danbury, Connecticut. So everything is very, very close. And then for me, I kind of
yeah.
just focus on, so I lived a little bit in Westport, worked in Ridgefield. So those are kind of like my no towns. It's hard to just to Greenwich because it's a very, very high end market. So I'll do, Stamford a ton. We have Luke on our team who lives in Stamford and specializes in Stamford as well. So Stamford is big for us. Greenwich, Westport. We don't do tons in Darien, but we do some if it's a special client that wants to be there. When I first got into the business, people told me to just pick one area. And then I really learned that it was hard to do because, especially now with the low inventory, you can't really pick one area, right? Because you're really looking for a house and there's no houses, if you're just going to be in Darien, then, or, you know, in Greenwich, your options are so limited. So people really kind of bounce around now.
Yeah, I think that we're seeing that too, where before people would come to us and say, you know, I'm really only looking in Riverdale. They're starting to kind of expand their search to, okay, I'll look in Riverdale and I'll look a little further east and I'll look maybe in northern Manhattan too, all at the same time.
And Yonkers.
Yeah.
Yonkers right now.
So we're starting to see people kind of cast that wider net. So having a team behind you where you have kind of expertise in a wider way, that must be a real benefit.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Market.
I really think, and the thing with that, so there was certain agents that just specialize in one, and then they would have to pass on to a different agent, and then, you know, next town over, which might be 5 or 10 minutes. And most of the time, people want to work with just one person, you know, and we're very limited to what we can say as far as, like, we can't really tell you about the schools. We can't talk about different, you know, there's a lot that we can't really say. So we can always connect you to somebody. So say we have a client that's looking in Fairfield. My best friend AJ, who was at Compass and now she's at Houlihan Lawrence, she's from Fairfield, so I can find, you know, connect them, and she can talk about, you know, what it was like growing up in Fairfield. So we really do kind of float around with them, similar as exactly what you guys are saying. People are kind of just kind of going all over.
You want to ask a...
Yeah. Sorry, you were kind of breaking up. So what makes Connecticut a really great place to call home, especially for people who are coming from maybe New York City, where our market is? What do you see people moving to Connecticut?
So it's hard to say because I never lived in New York City, so I don't really have that experience. What I loved about living just in Connecticut, per se, just on my own, was, like I said, I loved having the beaches. I loved the community feel. People are surprised with Greenwich because it's actually fairly large. We have 11 elementary schools just in town. So people kind of think like Greenwich is just like this smaller town, but it's actually really not. We have 3 middle schools and everybody goes into one high school. But the one high school is divided into 4 houses, or at least it was when I was actually there. So it's a smaller feel because it's almost like you're in 4 schools in one. I love that you have like Greenwich Avenue, which they consider like the Rodeo Drive of the East. So you have a ton of shopping, tons of restaurants. You get a lot more backyard space. I have a dog. I'm a big dog lover. I love to have hikes with my dog. I love to bring him to different lakes and different areas. There's almost so many places to explore with him around here, so we don't really get bored.
Yeah. How has Greenwich really changed since you were a kid?
Greenwich? No, it's definitely changed. You know, I think it's hard to say because it's definitely a very high-end area, you know, lots of luxury homes here. But when I was growing up here, and obviously I can really only talk about that, it was like a very diverse area, which people did not think at all and it actually is. So if you actually do some research on it, we have like an international school, which is one of the elementary schools here, which tons and tons of diversity. I would imagine it's still like that. I don't have any kids or anything in the school, so I can't really say, but that was one of the things I really loved about Greenwich, that the image that's kind of portrayed of it isn't really what it's like when you live here.
Yeah, I kind of feel like a lot of Connecticut has a bit of a Stepford Wives kind of thought to it, that, you know, that little boxes all the same kind of feel. But, you know, I in my experience, when I've gone out, it doesn't always really feel like that.
And there's you know, all kinds of walks of life, right? So yes, if you want to be part of like the super bougie area, you can do that. If you want to be part of the more low-key vibe, you can do that. When we went to high school, pretty much everyone drove Jeeps. It didn't matter if you were like a millionaire or billionaire, or like, you know, like me living with my mom, who got a single mom, so we lived in an apartment, and no one knew the difference, really. And that's how I remember it. Now I don't know how it is anymore. Obviously, it's definitely changed, but the world's is going to constantly evolve. But I enjoyed growing up here a lot.
So what do you think are the unique quirks or challenges to buying in your market compared to...
Well, the challenges are probably very similar to you guys because there's just no inventory right now. So it's the price. So prior to COVID, for the last decade, Greenwich was a pretty easy market to, every house was selling for a discounted rate. It was a really, really hard market for sellers, which is completely opposite from what it is now. Now there's no inventory at all. I have clients that are looking in Riverside and Old Greenwich School District, that's all, and there's 2 houses on the market. So that's a really hard struggle. People aren't selling. People don't have anywhere to go if they sell, so they're like, okay, I'm going to sell my house, but then where am I going to go? That's been the hardest point. Obviously, the how much you're paying of a premium for the homes that might have sold 4 years ago for $3 million are selling now for $4 million. That's a crazy increase, so it's hard to justify why you're going to pay 4 now when somebody paid a couple years ago 3. So it's hard to really sort of educate people, like, this is the market now. I know it doesn't make sense, but it's hard to almost go back, because if you're going to live in this house for a long time, probably 20 years, or see your kids through elementary, middle, and high school, the market's going to change, right? It's going to go up and go down, and we don't have crystal balls. We don't really know what's going to happen. And of course, like, a home is more of a commodity. It's not just an investment. It's where you celebrate your holidays, like where you have your child, where, you have everything, homes are so much more than just an investment. So that's the hard line I'm trying to get people to understand.
Right. And they have a reason that they're making a move, right? Be it as a seller or a buyer, there's a motivation there. So while it may be a challenging market, there's a reason to make it happen.
I mean, you have to look at the long term. Then you the whole point of, like, not paying rent for the next 20 years. And even if you sell your house at the same exact price or a little bit less than what you bought it for, which is never the goal, but you enjoyed the years in your house, right? When I bought my first house last year, I love my house so much. So, like, I went through it. I went through having to overbid on a home and having to do some renovations, and every time I'm here, I'm just so thankful. So, that's even if I have to have a big payment every month of my mortgage, I really wouldn't trade it. I love it.
Yeah. You did a lot of work to your house after you bought it, right? Can you tell us about how the renovation process
I took my house basically down to the studs. It was a 60s house. A lady lived here for a really, really long time. It had, like, pink and blue carpets and original kitchen and original bathrooms, and it was meticulously maintained. And that's, like, you always still love to see all the tile work was perfectly in place and very clean, but it was hard to redo it, but I did. We totally gutted it. I made my attic into a master bedroom and master bath with a master closet, which was the vision of why I fell in love with this house, is because I was like, the 3rd floor could be this space that I can create. So it was a lot of fun. It's definitely, you have to have thick skin to do any type of renovations. There's always going to be delays. There's always going to be little mistakes that happen here and there. But it was worth every single thought, every single disappointment, we had a lot of chaos in the construction. I did lots of things that I would never recommend. Like, I didn't pull permits. Don't ever do that. So, I learned a lot, which I think is going to help me in my career as well, to make sure that my clients don't ever make the same mistakes that I made.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're renovating a home? Maybe that some of your clients have done that maybe they wouldn't do.
That's a good question. I think when you're renovating a home, making sure you're picking a really good person to partner with, like the contractor that you're using, is the biggest mistake you can make, because it's a hard business. And I think you really have to be partners in it. You really have to trust the person that you're using. You also have to understand that there are going to be delays. There's things that are just, you can't control. So you have to, even if you have a complete timeline, like, it's unrealistic. As much as we try our hardest to follow it, we're actually building 2 houses right now with JH Builders, who's my favorite. If anybody needs anybody, he did the renovations at my house, and he's also building houses as well. But it's hard, because if there's a delay on appliances, or if there is rain delays, or just anything with weather, those things, they happen, so you have to make sure it's somebody you trust, and you have to make sure you have a little bit of thick skin.
When working with buyers, I frequently mention to them that, if you ever talk to somebody who just got renovated their home or even built it from the ground up, they'll show you around the home, tell you everything they love about the home. But usually before the actual walkthrough, they say something to the effect of, next time I do this. And I tell buyers that's kind of idea frequently because it reminds them and reminds all of us that when you're out looking for a home, you're not going to find something that's 100% perfect. And even if you think it is, eventually it won't be 100% perfect. You'll find the thing that makes it not. So as someone who just went through this process, do you have something that you have already that you're like, next time?
I think you have it in the moment.
This.
You know, you realize pretty quickly from picking tiles or from, you know, the design you do to, I spent a ton of money on appliances, and I remember my very good friend and builder who did at my house was like, "You're crazy! Like, don't spend that money on appliances." And I was like, "I want to have this dream kitchen, and I love to cook, and I love to host." And now I'm like, "This was so stupid. Like, I would have never done that." But at that time, it was like my main focus and what was so important to me. But I think for buyers that are like looking through houses, I would say like live in the house first if you can. You know, this house, it was a gut renovation. So live in the house first and then start to feel the things that you want to change. I saw Daniela's on this call. She's doing like her kitchen and a lot of landscaping stuff, but she lived in the house for a while. She moved from the Bronx to Mamaroneck, and she's on my team. She lived in her house for a while and started to figure out the things that she wanted to change, right? So I think she did it right. Now they're about to do their kitchen, and now she knows how she wants things to be, and she's been in my kitchen. She can compare, so she can kind of work through other people's mistakes and do it right on hers. But I'm sure even with her, there's going to be things that she's going to, it's just how it goes. You know, there's other things you wish she did differently. It's like the grass is sometimes greener, even though it's not, kind of thing.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, we're looking forward to our gut renovation that we're going to do for our future house that we have not bought yet.
It's coming.
But we know we're buying down the street from here, and all of those houses are like 100 years old. So we're going to have to gut any one that we like. We're going to have to buy it.
That's okay.
Yeah, which is fine. I want the shittiest house in the nicest neighborhood, and then we're going to turn it into the nicest house in the neighborhood.
And then you sell it and move up.
Yeah, but I'm mentally preparing myself for that.
It's rewarding though too. You know, I think you have to be very involved. Like I kind of came in and Jad will tell you, like I was here every day. Like I was checking on what they were doing. I was cleaning up after they left. Like I was very involved with my process. Maybe just because like being in the industry, you know, like I would get here at the end of the night and they would leave the place a mess and there was dust everywhere and I'd be sweeping and I'd be back and there'd be dust everywhere again. But I wanted to be part of this whole process and it's really rewarding. So I don't want to like at all make it like a scary, like, you know, it's going to be amazing when you do it. And then when it's done, all those, it's like everything, right? All those bad memories and all those bad experiences go away because then you're enjoying everything about the good times.
Yeah. You know, I think it's interesting also the perspective that you brought to it, that now you have the experience with clients, you know. Every time we go through something in this industry or in our own lives, right, it gives us more expertise to talk to with our clients to what they're about to go through.
Like when we had shit water raining from our ceiling and had to
But you learned how to go through insurance, right? You learned the process.
Right. And, you know, to that regard, we have an insurance agent who we trust and work with frequently, and she had her house burned down, you know, she had just bought it, and then a little bit later, it completely burned down to the ground. And she had to...
after she got renovated it.
Yeah.
She literally finished it, and the day after it burned down.
And she had to rebuild, and she had to go through insurance. But as a person who works in that field, she now has... You know, it was horrible, but she has such
empathy now.
and expertise because she's been through it and she had to do it herself and she understands what that tragedy is like. You know, kind of different kind of things, but really we're talking about the same thing. If you've been through the process of doing a gut renovation, you can speak to it.
Yeah, and I think like we're talking about with the Connecticut thing, picking an agent that you and I know we're realtors and we say this, but when I sold my first condo, I used a realtor. I believe you need a trusted advisor. It's not just because I'm trying to sell myself or sell you guys. When you're moving to Connecticut or even northern Westchester or wherever, there's septics, there's wells, there's oil tanks, there's so many things that you don't know. And if you think you can just save the 2 or 2.5% or 3% or whatever it is, and not have a realtor or just go listing agent, and you don't have somebody advising you, you don't, I mean, one of my houses in Westport, Connecticut was a historic home that we were selling, and we found 3 underground oil tanks that were had leaked. So could be a massive expense. So these are all things that like you really need somebody that's an advisor that can say, I know somebody who does a scan, or I know a great septic guy that can make sure that your septic tank is good and that your leaching fields are good, because these are massive expenses, you know. And even the houses that you buy in Connecticut, like my house that doesn't have a septic, we have a sewer line from our house that goes out to the road, and that sewer line is probably from the 60s and is probably corroded. So now owning this house, knowing there's an insurance you can get for sewer lines that's pretty inexpensive. So when that sewer line goes, I don't have to spend $5,000 or $10,000 to replace that. So you really want somebody that knows all of these things, you know. And for me and my culture of my team, the most important thing to me is that we are all the same as far as culture goes. We want the best for our clients, and we'll never jeopardize that for a commission at all. So like, it just doesn't happen. So we want to make sure that we're always out protecting them, making sure that we're seeing everything possible that could go wrong in a house or in a cell. And that's why I think it's super important, especially when you're coming from the city, where most of the times you're in condos or co-ops, you know, and you have the stress, of course, of you guys where the person upstairs is overflowed or whatever the case, you know, but you don't have the outside.
Right, but we don't have with fixing that.
Yeah.
We have a super. We call the super. He appears, and they deal with it. Right. You have to, when you're in a house in a town in Connecticut, you have to figure out where you're going to source all this from. The ship water is leaking, and you have nobody to call. You have to go find that person. So, I mean, it kind of also speaks to how the relationship with your agent really should outlive the transaction, right? Like, you don't stop being our client when our deals end, and I would assume it's the same
100%.
with you
I mean,
and
our
your clients.
book of business is really referrals, right? It's giving somebody a good experience that they never want to forget you. And we have like an email that goes out after we do every sale that says like, we're still here, you know, call us if you need a contractor, a painter, if you need any single thing. I mean, I keep in touch with pretty much all of my clients. There's very few that I don't. They become like family, right? We're helping them. I always tell this story about when I rented a place out in California. My landlord there told me the two biggest investments you ever make in your life is who you spend your life with and the house you buy. So like, if you figure the first one out, awesome. And then the second one, you need to make sure that you're buying something, you know, or investing something, or that's a good location. Like you guys said, having the best house on the street, that's a good investment for you. That makes sense. Like there's my Danielle again on the call right now. She has clients that are looking for a house and they're elderly. And she's like, they can't buy this house because there's a lot of stairs. And sometimes it's hard for us because we want to help so much, but they want this house. But we're like, yeah, but this is going to be a problem in a couple of years and we want to protect you. And it's really hard to decide how far you can protect when somebody really, at the end of the day, is going to make their own decision, right? So those are all things. Those are all things to think about. But we love to be a part of all of those things.
Yeah, it's hard when you like want to advocate for them, but sometimes we
try really hard not to. We're very heart first. It's very hard to separate. Very, very hard, because we want to make sure that they're making an investment that's good for them.
Yeah.
Looks like we have a question. How do you manage the low inventory narrative to not frustrate buyers while enticing sellers?
I mean, it's impossible to not be frustrated. Honestly, it's a painful business right now. If you're not a listing agent, and even as a listing agent, it's pretty tough too, because you're getting 20, 30 offers and you have to pick, you know, and you want to balance that you want all the money you can get, but you also want to pick the right buyer. And it's also, it's just a very frustrating process. So I think like just being there for people and supporting them, you know, we're trying to do a lot of off-market deals right now. You have to actually work really hard as a realtor. You have to go through expireds. You have to see if the rental listing will become a sale. You can't just rely on the MLS right now. You have to maybe go out if you're in a state that you're allowed to door knock, or if you're, you know, sending letters. Like you have to be creative with what you're doing right now. And it's tough. It's definitely tough. Me personally haven't put a deal together in weeks because I don't have anything to sell anybody. And it's scary and stressful. And, you know, it's like, there's nothing to sell them. It's a really hard really hard to be a buyer right now. So, whoever's asking that, hopefully you have a good agent that can support you and dig into the MLS, go back 10 years and see what houses expired and what houses didn't sell and see if they're interested in selling. We make those deals happen. We really do.
And I think that, as we're seeing frequently now, part of the problem is a lot of sellers have now refinanced over the last few years to rates that are 2.5%, 3%. And with rates, kind of creeping back up this week.
Yeah, they're like, why the hell would I leave?
So unless they have a need to make a move, right? Unless there's something that's forcing them to move, they're not selling. So,
and that's a big problem that we have specifically here, because the taxes in this part of the in
the city
are so low, the property taxes. So they have these very low rates that they refinanced on top of a
$7,000 a year tax bill.
Yeah, which is like nothing to these people, and they're like, oh, well,
they can leave it sitting empty for now.
Yeah, so they won't lower their prices. They won't negotiate. They're like, okay, we'll wait for my price.
It's also just hard in general with the banks and everything happening in this. It's hard for us too.
Yeah.
Like we can relate. We're in a business that we rely on our sales to fund our life and our lifestyle and to eat and pay our mortgage or our bills. So it's a scary time for everybody. We're never going to be able to predict what's going to happen. We always try to make sure buy in your budget. Don't overspend. Don't go house poor. The rates, we don't know what to say about those either. They keep going up and going down, but of course you can refinance. But if you're staying in your comfort point and you're staying, in a place that you're comfortable with, if anything changes, if they go down, you'll refinance, right? But if you overspend and they go up, then you're stuck. So just make really wise choices.
Yeah. Is there much new development in your marketplace right now?
Greenwich definitely has some houses that are coming on, and that's another thing. People are fairly scared to buy a new construction house because it's very hard to visualize and it's very hard to put your trust into somebody that once you sign on the dotted line, is the house going to be worth the $4 million that you're paying, or $3 million, or even if it's $1 million, whatever the price is. There's not a ton of land, definitely not a ton, but we are seeing right now, if you have the opportunity to buy something that's not completely ready, it's kind of the only way you're getting like maybe a little bit of a deal because you're taking the risk. So I had clients that built a house, they bought the land during COVID, and like now people are already wanting to offer on it because it's almost at the final stages. So, I think if you can get into something like that, it's a cool opportunity. And I know Compass works a lot with Welcome Homes, and I work a lot with JH Builders. Talk to them. A lot of those will work with your agent or talk to the builder. They can scout out tear downs or, builds and stuff like that.
What's one thing more people knew about moving to Connecticut?
More people knew about moving to Connecticut. Well, I guess things that are really great are obviously the getting to the train and getting into the city very quickly. Westchester County Airport, which is like on the border of Greenwich and Westchester. Flights to Florida are so easy. The beaches are beautiful. If you're into boating or dining, we have the Bruce Museum, which is so nice. Hiking, anything outdoorsy, I would say is the best thing. I don't know if people don't know that, but if they don't know it, do some research or get on Instagram and follow some of these people that do all these like best hiking spots in Connecticut or best places to eat. There's so many places by the water. Even if you go further back into Connecticut, which we're really right on the border, so like kind of from New York, Connecticut in general, just because we're the first town. But if you go further, like Madison,
Right.
Old Lyme, there's so many cute waterfront, oysters and so many places to explore. Like I need to do more of that, even getting out, drive an hour away into Connecticut. My aunt who just jumped on the call too, she's really good at that. She'll go stay at a bed and breakfast somewhere in Connecticut and like tell us how she had the best lobster rolls. There's so much to explore here.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
ASAP.
Me too.
Really. So thank you so much for taking all this time with us. I really appreciate it. I love getting to talk to you whenever we can. Why don't you let everyone know, once again, your name, your market, if you have anything exciting coming up, or where people can follow you.
Jess Sigmund from the
anything
Sigmund
like
team from Greenwich, Connecticut, but our team is in Westchester, Rockland, and Fairfield County. And I'm excited that I was on this call, and thank you guys for the opportunity. I love following all your stuff as well, and I hope we can do more connecting.
I hope so.
Thanks, Jess. Well, again, guys, we're the Aaron and Jeff team at Compass. I'm Jeff.
I'm Aaron.
And we're your Bronx real estate experts. Thanks for coming to the Relocation Rundown.
Bye.
And we'll see you soon.
Bye.